Hey everybody, Arden here, and it's my favorite time of the week because I get to talk to you. I just remember like when I was an up and coming singer, and it can feel like really isolating and lonely sometimes. You feel like you're the only one like pushing this giant boulder up the mountain. And so I love being able to come in here with you guys and be able to talk and share the things that I've learned over the years that have made a huge difference to me and that make a huge difference for the singers in my programs. So I'm glad you're here. So today we're going to talk about something that I think is a huge source of sort of anxiety and worry amongst those of you who are really going for a professional career, or you're sort of at that point of like, am I going to really go big with this? Am I going to take it from being that sort of, passionate amateur to like really professional career? And that fear is, how do I stay the course? How do I have a long career? Like there are so many unknowns. There's so many ups and downs. And I think what scares a lot of singers from really going for it is that that it's not a predictable path. It's not like, you become a doctor or you want to be a doctor and it's like, okay, you go to college, you take the MCAT, you go to medical school. There's like a prescribed path. You do your residency, you pass your exams, you do your internship, and then you join a practice. It's like you study and you do all that, you'll become a doctor. And it's not so linear for singers. There's so many unknowns. And so what I want to talk about today is how to stay the course. How to stay the course for a career when, without experiencing all of the pressure and the stress and the frustration that so often accompanies this career, and how to walk through this journey with your singing and your music professionally with real enjoyment, with real joy, so that you don't get waylaid and give up before you have found the kind of success that is meaningful to you. And so to me, there's one major culprit that cuts careers short before they've even had the chance to really flourish. And so today, in that spirit, we're going to go hunting. We're going to do a little hunting. And we're going to hunt out this culprit, this thief. We're going to hunt it down and we're going to take them out before they have a chance to do any more damage to your career or prevent you from even starting, okay? So you may be wondering, who is this? Who is this thief that's been stealing careers and cutting them short? And, you've got your whole team around you likely. You've got voice teachers, you've got coaches. If you're a recording artist, you have producers and collaborators, you have co-writers. For a lot of you, you may have agents or managers if you're in the Broadway space or the opera space. And amid all these people, there's somebody else that's actually been running the show for a long time now, and they are a total saboteur. And they are so good at influencing your singing and your career choices that you do not even notice that you're being manipulated, okay? And when you listen to them, never turns out well. So it's time to blow the whistle on them. It's time to fire them from this job that they have held for a long time. And I'm talking about your inner critic, okay? We all have one. Just some might be louder and more abusive than others. And when I talk to singers who, are coming into my program, gosh, you guys are so hard on yourself. It's like inner critic run riot. And you're so used to being beat up by it that you don't even recognize how bad it is. It's like an abusive relationship. If a woman has only ever been in abusive relationships with men, she thinks it's normal because it's all she's ever known. And so some of us don't even realize how abusive our inner critic is and how badly we relate to ourselves and speak to ourselves because it's just always been that way. We don't know any different. So can you imagine how that affects your voice, your sound, your technique, and your ability to make an impact on an audience. So, you guys may have heard me say this before, but we physicalize our emotions and our thoughts. It's just part of being human. It's just part of what we do as humans. It's normal. We all do it. We all carry our emotions and our thoughts in our body. So if you have a permanent resident in your head who is beating you up, then you are carrying that in your body too. And so several things can happen, right? You're afraid to really go for it and trust your body and trust your technique because your inner critic berates you with how inferior you are. And so you don't believe you can do it. And so you don't. You back away from your connection to your support. You back away from trust in your instrument, your body, your technique, and then your sound suffers. You're in your head all the time instead of in the moment of the song. And so your connection to your audience suffers and your ability to make an impact in those performance suffers, which means that the career suffers because if you're not making an impact, that's the whole point, right? And then, oftentimes you don't want to unleash the inner critic. You don't want to unleash that beating that the inner critic will give you if you don't sing well. So you overcompensate. You get into this habit of, forcing, pushing, manipulating, making, proving, in an effort to control the outcome of the sound so that you don't get beaten up by all those, inner critic beatings. I don't know how else to put it, right? So you go into this force mode, push mode, manipulate mode. But the problem is now your pitch suffers. Or you're in strain or tension, you're pushing, you're overdoing, you've lost your connection to your technique, you've lost your connection to your audience because you come across as like you're trying too hard. I mean, you guys have seen people like this, And so when you've got an inner critic who's not in check, it becomes really hard to stay the course and empower yourself to do everything that you need to do to build a free and fearless foundation for your singing so you can have success because of all those things we just talked about. The inner critic makes it really impossible to keep showing up because everything becomes proving, forcing, pushing, and then you get worse results, which cause you to beat yourself up even more, which cause you to go into all of those reactions of pushing, forcing, manipulating, lack of trust, lack of impact, which then cause the career to suffer even more, which makes you feel even more less than. The inner critic beats you up even more. And you're in this loop. You're in this negative feedback loop, in this cycle. And so how could you stay the course with that inner critic who is constantly sabotaging you? It's impossible. The only way to move forward powerfully is you got to fire that inner critic. Okay. We do this in my intensive where I have my students in the intensive write actual termination letters to their inner critic, and I'll have them give them a name. One of my students, I love him. He named his dickhead. So he's writing a letter. Dear dickhead, your position has been eliminated. We are taking the company in a different direction and we no longer need your services. They are no longer the direction that we want to go in this company. You see how it goes. You got to fire that inner critic in order to align with the voice of your truth, with the voice of your awareness, with the voice of your highest and best self, your true self. And so the true self, it's aligned with compassion for you, for others. It can, your awareness, your true self, it has the ability to look inwards at your insecurities with honesty and courage and acceptance. And it allows you to be vulnerable and take risks because it doesn't judge. If you have this thing that's constantly judging, you're not going to be putting yourself out there for all the reasons we just talked about. But the true self, it knows, it understands that you are perfectly imperfect, just the way you are. And so it is this unconditionally loving, accepting, supportive presence. And its presence is there for you to tap into at all times. So when you're in insecurity, when you're in self-doubt or shame for all the ways that you perceive that you are inadequate, that you are not good enough, please know that it is not your true self that's talking. It's just the ego mind in the form of that thinking, that inner critic thinking that it can scare you into not failing at your passion, at your job, at your relationship, whatever it may be, okay? When you hear that voice that's beating you up, it is not your true self. It is just your inner critic trying to motivate you with the stick instead of the carrot. If I beat you up enough, then you won't fail, okay? But the thing is, this ego mind, it's so terrified of failing. That's the thing it is the most terrified of. And so the ego mind has created this inner critic as a means of protection. It thinks if it beats you up enough and it scares you enough, it will protect you from failing at whatever these things are that you want the most. But we all know how well that works out. It never works because it keeps you in that cycle of fear and sabotaging what you really want. So we got to fire it. We got to fire that inner critic. And it's going to try to come back. It doesn't like being fired. It's very used to this high position that it has held in your mind for a long time. But when it does try to come back, you get to detach from it. And you get to laugh at it. Ha 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 ha, inner critic. Oh my God, you're so predictable. You're so predictable. Didn't I fire you a month ago? Didn't we fire you? Remember that? Right. And with that detachment, you create some space. And then awareness and ego mind are not intermixed. And with that space, you get to realign with the true self, the self that's witnessing the inner critic rather than buying into it. And when you align with your true self, you listen to that voice. That's the voice of your uniqueness, of your power, of your possibility, of your vulnerability, of all the things that make you an amazing performer. But it's a practice. It's a practice of learning how to listen to that inner critic, you know? You got to get to know what that voice of your true self is, because we're so used to just hearing the inner critic all the time, because the inner critic, it's loud. The inner critic is that loud screaming voice, you know? And so you got to know what the voice of your true self sounds like, because it's usually the smaller voice. You got to learn how to listen for it. Get well acquainted with it. Invite it to spend more time talking to you so you can learn to pay attention to it instead of the counterproductive messaging of the inner critic when it tries to come out of retirement. Because it's going to try. It doesn't like being fired. But when you know what that voice of the inner truth sounds like and you know how to align with it, then you know how to pay attention to it when you're in those moments of difficulty, especially with respect to your singing and your career. And so I want to tell you the story of a singer who I've worked with in the past who came into my program, and her name is Jory. And she's a recording artist, and her records were just languishing. I mean, sitting there released with like couple hundred plays, like no mainstream attention. And she would pour her heart and soul into them and then just like hate how she came out, how they come out, and hate how she sounded. And she always felt she sounded like amazing when she was just singing and writing her songs. But then something would happen in the studio when she'd go in to record. And she could never get the same sound. It was never the same feeling as when she was just writing and playing and it was just flowing through her. And she was so critical of herself because of this. And it was like chasing bad take after bad take and beating herself up. And it was really causing her to doubt her talent, doubting if she was really good enough to do this, because not only was anything working that she had tried before when she'd released things, but it was so important to her. She was trying so hard because it mattered so much. And then she wasn't getting the results she wanted in the studio every time. And she was so frustrated. And she was ready to throw in the towel when she came to work with me. She was done. She was ready to quit because the joy was being sucked out of it for her. And so through our work together, Jory got in touch with her truth, her true self, with respect to her artistry, with respect to her being, with respect to her voice. And when she realized this, she had this huge aha moment, which was she realized that she has a voice. She is not a voice. It's something she does. It's not who she is. And that inner critic was making her feel completely inadequate, which was why she was putting so much pressure on herself. When the producer would hit record and then the sound wasn't good, or what she was doing with her voice, because it was way too much pressure. If singing is who I am, and then I'm not doing it and getting the results that I want, then that is a reflection of my worth, of me, if I believe that singing is who I am. There's no separation between the singing and the self and what was happening with her. And so the work that we did through the work in my program, she broke through that block. And it took learning how to employ some radical self-care to get out from under the grips of this inner critic. But with that learning, she could finally catalyze her technique and free her voice, so that those performances, when she goes into the studio, she's in touch with all of her power, all of her truth, all of her vulnerability. And then it's like 3 takes, boom. And she's not taken down that vortex that was sabotaging her before. But how do you find that voice of the true self? How do you quiet the inner critic? How do you do this? You could go to meditation classes, you could go to yoga, you could do exercise, you could do therapy, and all of these things help to some degree. But where they fall short is in connecting that learning to the moment of singing, to the moment of performing. And it could take years doing it that piecemeal way, which is why I work with singers the way that I do. Because who wants to wait for years for things to connect when there's like a much more direct road to get you out of these old habits and, get out of these things that have been sabotaging your singing for so long and give you your best shot at success? Like who wants to do that the long way, So if you're done doing it piecemeal and you want direct guidance and actionable tools to be able to sing in a way that builds the best foundation upon which to stack success, then I invite you to book a call with me, because I want you guys to know that there's another way. And I'm shouting about it from the rooftops because so many of you are suffering with inner critic, with sabotaging things that you don't even realize. So the call is totally free. I'm here to support you. We're going to talk for about 45 minutes and you're going to get clarity on what's going on up here right now, like your current mindset around your singing, how it's affecting your technique and your sound and the ability for you to create the success that you want with it. And plus I understand that you might want my help to transform your singing in your career. So if so, we can discuss that too. We can see if it's a good fit for both of us. And if not, that's fine too. There's still so much clarity you're going to get on this call. I want to be super clear about who this is for. If you've never had one-on-one technical training with an expert before in the form of, private voice lessons, this call is not for you yet. If you're in a lot of sabotaging inner critic stuff, a lot of it could be because you actually don't have the tools. And so the insecurity you are feeling is real. It's not just stupid fear sabotaging you. It is real because you do not have reliable tools yet, just in the form of a basic vocal technique that any voice teacher worth their salt can give you. So go get that first. And this is a great time to do it. All the best teachers in the world, we're all online. You can take with anybody, anywhere. It's no longer an excuse that you live somewhere that doesn't have good voice teachers. So if you've not had one-on-one training with an expert before, go get that. Don't book this call. But if you have had one-on-one training, and you've been, in voice lessons for years, and you've done workshops, and you're out there, you're recording, you're auditioning, you're hustling to make this happen. And you just realize that it's not happening as fast as you would like or at the level that you would like, and you're frustrated. Now we're talking, book a call. We're going to get you sorted because we got to understand what's going on in the mindset, the things that are sabotaging you from making that best sound, from allowing you to really show up and make an impact in your recordings, your performances, your auditions, and give you some clarity on what's going on. And I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step strategy that I do with my singers who are in my program to help you understand what we do to fix it. So don't be shy. Go ahead, book a call. What have you got to lose? It's free. And I want you guys to understand that there is a better way to train. And so we're going to get under the hood and we're going to get some clarity on what's not working, and then discuss how you go from where you are right now to where you want to be. So I really look forward to talking to those of you who, get over the hump and book the call so we can chat and get you sorted. And for those of you who are not yet at this point, I really encourage you to examine why you haven't invested in that kind of training yet, why you haven't put your time and your energy and your resource to doing that. If singing is the thing that you were put on this planet to do, then don't waste another minute. Go get that training or book a call with me. I will see you here next week on some other topic that I decide to expound on as I do. So have a wonderful week. Book a call with me if that's something that you want to learn more about, and I will see you next time. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for tuning into today's episode. If you want to subscribe, click the link right over there that says subscribe. And if you want to book a breakthrough session with me, which you absolutely should do, then click the link right over here that says book a call to schedule an appointment to speak with us. I'll see you on the next episode.